The memory of the operation did not present itself to Trooper Veyr Holt as a sequence of combat events. It remained fixed around smaller details that persisted long after extraction. The vibration of armored boots against unstable plating. The smell of oxidized coolant trapped in dead ventilation shafts. The sound of distant metal movement carrying through the interior mass of the hulk long before visual confirmation could ever be established. He remembered the silence most clearly. Not the absence of sound, but the suppression of ordinary battlefield noise. No artillery, no open air, no engines operating at full capacity. Every movement inside the structure had been compressed into confined corridors, where sound carried unpredictably through layered decks and fractured ship hulls. Distance became impossible to judge accurately. A noise occurring several hundred meters away could sound immediate. A nearby impact could vanish beneath the interference of old reactor hum. The mission itself had not initially been considered high risk by Tempestus command standards. Hazardous, yes. Unstable environmental conditions were expected. Possibility of hostile infestation was acknowledged during briefing. But the primary operational objective centered around recovery and reconnaissance, rather than direct engagement. The Adeptus Mechanicus Explorator team assigned to the hulk had transmitted partial data logs before communications collapsed entirely. Their final transmission indicated discovery of a functioning data repository somewhere within the upper spire structures of an ancient vessel embedded deep inside the hulk mass. The transmission ended abruptly, approximately 14 standard hours later. No further contact was received. The Explorator team was officially classified as missing for 3 days before Militarum Tempestus assets were assigned retrieval authority. Trooper Veyr Holt had not questioned the order. At the time of deployment, Holt served as acting marksman and reconnaissance specialist for Strike Team Hadeon, a 4-man Tempestus Scion detachment operating under the command authority of Tempestor Kael Dravik. The team had completed 19 prior boarding operations involving orbital debris fields, pirate strongholds, derelict stations, and 2 previous space hulk penetrations. Casualty probability estimates for the assignment remained within acceptable thresholds, according to command assessment. The estimate proved inaccurate. Veyr Holt originated from the hive world of Vanek Prime, located within the Helican subsector. Records described the planet as heavily industrialized, with atmospheric toxicity levels requiring partial filtration systems across most populated sectors. Holt had been born within the lower manufacturum districts beneath Hive Cerberon, where labor mortality rates exceeded standard Imperial averages by nearly 20%. His recruitment into the Schola Progenium occurred following the death of both biological parents during an industrial reactor failure. Like many future Scions, he possessed limited memory of his original family. Institutional conditioning replaced most personal attachment before adolescence concluded. At 29 standard years of age during the operation, Holt stood slightly above average height for Militarum Tempestus personnel at approximately 184 centimeters. His physical frame remained lean due to extended operational conditioning rather than excessive musculature. Numerous scars existed across both forearms and neck regions from prior combat deployments, though none carried ceremonial significance. His hair had been maintained under regulation length, with signs of premature graying near the temples. Ocular pigmentation remained pale gray, a trait common among lower hive populations exposed to industrial atmospheric contaminants over multiple generations. Psychological evaluations categorized him as operationally disciplined, with elevated threat assessment tendencies. Less diplomatically, several officers had previously described him as cautious to the point of pessimism. Holt considered the description practical rather than insulting. Pessimism kept personnel alive. His assigned equipment loadout reflected his battlefield role. Standard issue reinforced. Tempestus Scion carapace armor had been modified with additional sensor threading along the shoulder and collar assembly to support reconnaissance Auspex synchronization. Primary weapon configuration consisted of a hot-shot laser gun fitted with an extended barrel assembly, thermal optic attachment, and reinforced focusing coils calibrated for accurate mid-range targeting. Secondary equipment included fragmentation grenades, 1 melter charge, emergency rebreather reserves, and a compact motion scanning unit linked directly into the team command channel. During most deployments, Holt operated ahead of primary formation positions by approximately 15 to 20 meters, depending on terrain restrictions. Inside the hulk, distances became considerably shorter. The structure designated as Space Hulk Moros Fall had first emerged near the Brakatos Reach, following a localized warp distortion event. Imperial naval scans estimated the hulk mass exceeded 40 kilometers across at its widest visible point, though precise dimensions proved impossible to establish due to continuous structural overlap between merged vessels. The hulk itself represented centuries of accumulated wreckage, fused through repeated warp exposure and gravitational compression. Ancient Imperial warships existed alongside cargo haulers, unidentified Xenos hull fragments, mining platforms, and station debris, compacted into a drifting artificial continent of twisted metal. Some vessels dated back thousands of years. Others appeared recently absorbed. The Mechanicus Explorator team, assigned to Moros Fall, consisted of 9 personnel, led by Magos Erind Veyr, an explorator specializing in pre-heresy machine archives. Their mission objective centered around investigation of a partially intact command spire detected within one of the embedded capital ships near the hulk core. Initial scans suggested the vessel may have originated during the Great Crusade period due to specific reactor signatures and archaic structural markers. Such discoveries carried enormous value to the Adeptus Mechanicus. Recovered standard template construct fragments alone could justify the loss of entire regiments. According to the final transmission logs provided to Tempestus Command, Magos Veyl's team reported discovery of functioning cogitator systems within the upper levels of the spire. Power signatures indicated partial reactor activity despite catastrophic surrounding damage. The Explorators requested additional extraction support shortly before communications ceased permanently. No distress signal followed. No combat reports were transmitted. Only silence. Strike Team Hadeon received deployment orders aboard the frigate Bastion Resolve while operating near the neighboring subsector trade routes. Holt remembered the briefing chamber clearly because of how restrained the presentation had been. No dramatic warnings, no motivational speeches, just operational facts displayed across a tactical hololith. Retrieve surviving Mechanicus personnel, if possible. Recover all data cores and exploratory findings. Confirm cause of signal loss. Avoid structural destabilization events. terminate hostile entities only if operationally necessary. Simple orders on paper rarely remained simple inside a hulk. Tempestor Kael Dravik had understood that immediately. Dravik commanded the squad with a reputation built less on aggression and more on survival efficiency. Unlike many Tempestus officers seeking advancement through visible battlefield heroics, Dravik prioritized operational completion with minimal losses. He was 41 standard years old at the time of deployment, and among the oldest active Tempestors within the battle group. Extensive scar tissue covered the left side of his scalp, where previous cranial reconstruction surgery had replaced portions of bone with metallic reinforcement plates. He spoke little during transit preparations. That alone concerned Holt. The remaining members of Strike Team Hadeon consisted of Trooper Selk Wren and Trooper Mathis Corvin. Wren served as heavy weapons support and breaching specialist. Broad-shouldered even beneath armor plating, he carried a modified hotshot volley gun with reinforced ammunition feeds and magnetic stabilization harnesses attached directly into his carapace frame. Unlike Holt, Wren retained aspects of personality rarely encouraged within Militarum Tempestus formations. He spoke frequently, maintained gambling habits during transit periods, and treated fatality projections with open sarcasm. Corvin operated as communications and medici support. Younger than the others by nearly 6 years, he remained recently transferred into Hadeon, following losses sustained during a prior anti-insurgency campaign. Corvin displayed strong technical competence, but lacked extensive boarding operation experience. The distinction mattered. Boarding actions punished hesitation faster than ordinary ground warfare, especially inside a space hulk. As deployment hour approached, Holt completed final weapon calibrations within the transport bay, while servitors loaded additional ammunition containers into the Valkyrie insertion craft. Through the bay observation ports, Moros Fall appeared less like a vessel and more like a continent drifting through darkness. Countless fractured hulls protruded outward at impossible angles. Sections rotated slowly around dead central masses. Occasional energy discharges flickered deep within the structure, like distant lightning trapped beneath metal skin. Holt remembered staring at the hulk for several seconds longer than necessary before boarding commenced. Not because of fear, because the structure looked alive. The operational briefing commenced approximately 3 hours before insertion. Strike Team Hadeon assembled inside Tactical Chamber 4 aboard the frigate Bastion Resolve, while senior command personnel finalized synchronization with the Adeptus Mechanicus recovery authorities. The chamber itself remained dim, except for the central hololithic projector displaying rotating structural scans of space hulk Moros Fall. Most of the imagery had been compiled from long-range naval Auspex sweeps and fragmented Mechanicus survey drones that had managed partial transmissions before signal degradation rendered them inoperable. The scans revealed only a fraction of the hulk's internal complexity. Massive vessel sections overlapped through collapsed structural layers with little regard for original orientation. Entire corridors terminated into solid bulkheads belonging to different ships fused centuries apart. Gravity fluctuated unpredictably throughout several sectors due to competing reactor fields and damaged void systems operating independently within isolated compartments. The target structure was identified near the upper spine of a partially embedded Imperial cruiser designated Sanctity of Pallas. Mechanicus data analysts estimated the vessel predated most current Imperial naval configurations by several millennia. Though heavily damaged, portions of the cruiser's command spire still retained intermittent power signatures. That was where Magos Erindvale's Explorator team had vanished. Tempestor Kael Dravik stood nearest to the tactical display, while the briefing officer transmitted mission details through a compressed Vox channel from command operations. Dravik observed the rotating structure silently, arms folded behind his back, his expression remaining fixed in the same restrained concentration Holt had observed before difficult operations. Trooper Veyr Holt occupied the left side of the chamber beside the ammunition crate stacks, while Selk Wren leaned against the rear bulkhead cleaning carbon residue from his volley gun's stabilization vents. Corvin sat closest to the projector controls, reviewing environmental hazard reports through a portable data slate. No one interrupted the briefing. The projected casualty estimate had already discouraged casual conversation. Operational authority for the mission technically belonged to the Adeptus Mechanicus, due to the nature of the recovered data. However, all tactical command regarding movement, engagement protocol, and extraction procedures remained under Tempestus jurisdiction. The Mechanicus representatives involved in the briefing appeared visibly frustrated by the arrangement, though none openly challenged it. Holt remembered one of them particularly well. Magos Leth Varun, the Mechanicus overseer, stood motionless near the edge of the chamber, accompanied by 2 combat servitors linked through thick cranial data cables extending from his spinal assembly. Nearly 70% of his visible anatomy had undergone cybernetic replacement. His lower jaw had been removed entirely and replaced with a bronze-plated Vox emitter system that distorted portions of his speech into metallic harmonics. Multiple mechadendrites extended from his back beneath dark crimson robes, marked with the sigil of the Adeptus Mechanicus Explorator fleet. Veyr addressed the squad without introduction. The data repository aboard Sanctity of Pallas possesses priority designation Omega-9. Retrieval supersedes preservation of exploratory assets if necessary. The statement generated immediate silence. Even Wren stopped adjusting his weapon. Varen continued. Contained archives may include intact navigation matrices, reactor schematics, and pre-Martian machine liturgies inaccessible within current Mechanicus repositories. Recovery probability diminishes with each passing standard hour due to ongoing power fluctuations. Dravik responded evenly. You are asking for retrieval confirmation before survivor confirmation. Yes. No hesitation followed the answer. The reality did not surprise Holt. The Adeptus Mechanicus valued information differently than ordinary Imperial organizations. Human personnel represented tools. Rare technological knowledge represented permanence. Still, hearing it spoken openly shifted the atmosphere inside the chamber. The tactical display rotated toward the projected insertion route. Strike Team Hadeon would deploy through Hangar Aperture Sigma 9, an exposed breach located along the dorsal structure of a collapsed transport vessel fused adjacent to Sanctity of Pallas. From there, the squad would navigate approximately 4 kilometers through partially pressurized corridors toward the command spire, where the Explorator signal had last originated. Estimated operational duration ranged between 6 and 9 hours. extraction windows remained uncertain. The Hulk's unstable gravitational fields prevented continuous Valkyrie support deeper inside the structure. Once deployed, the squad would operate independently until returning to the designated retrieval zone. If retrieval became impossible, emergency beacon protocols would initiate orbital contingency responses. Nobody asked what contingency meant. Everyone already knew. Corvin requested clarification regarding hostile presence probabilities. The briefing officer answered by displaying fragmented surveillance captures transmitted from failed Mechanicus servo skulls during the earlier expedition. Most images contained only static distortion. One image showed corridor markings covered in unidentified organic residue. Another showed severe claw scoring across bulkhead plating, nearly 6 centimeters deep. The final image displayed the remains of an unidentified servitor unit torn apart inside a maintenance shaft. No confirmed hostile identification could be established. That alone concerned Holt more than confirmation would have. Unknown threats inside confined structures created operational paralysis. Standard engagement doctrine relied heavily upon identifying enemy behavioral patterns before contact escalation. Without identification, every sound became a possible threat vector. Wren finally broke the silence. "So we're blind," Dravik answered before command staff could respond. "We're cautious. Different problem." The briefing transitioned toward logistical preparation shortly afterward. Strike Team Hadeon received reinforced operational supply allocations beyond ordinary boarding assignments due to the instability of Moros Fall's interior conditions. Additional power packs for hotshot weapon systems were issued alongside reserve oxygen recyclers and emergency ration modules calibrated for low-atmosphere environments. Each trooper carried approximately 32 kilograms of operational equipment, excluding armor weight. Holt's reconnaissance loadout included upgraded Auspex filters designed specifically for Space Hulk operations. The modifications allowed limited motion tracking through dense metallic interference, though reliability remained inconsistent beyond 20 meters due to overlapping structural densities. Corvin received expanded medical reserves, including synthetic clotting agents, stim injectors, surgical packs, and portable anti-radiation suppressants. Environmental scans indicated elevated radiation exposure across several sectors near the target spire. Wren acquired 2 additional melter charges and expanded ammunition belts for the volley gun. Boarding operations inside restricted corridors heavily favored suppressive firepower during hostile contact. Dravik carried standard Tempestor command equipment, alongside a plasma pistol and reinforced power sword integrated into his magnetic hip harness. Unlike ceremonial officers within many Imperial formations, Tempestors frequently operated directly at the front of engagement lines. Dravik preferred remaining close enough to personally verify battlefield conditions. The squad's transportation support would consist of a modified Valkyrie assault carrier piloted by Flight Lieutenant Seran Veyr and co-pilot Mara Kest. Both pilots possessed previous Hulk insertion experience, though neither expressed enthusiasm regarding Moros Fall specifically. Holt overheard fragments of their discussion while preparing equipment near the hangar deck. Too much debris movement. The whole structure rotates unevenly. Thrusters won't stabilize if the magnetic field spikes again. Neither complaint was inaccurate. Space Hulks created navigation hazards beyond ordinary void operations. Massive gravitational inconsistencies generated unpredictable debris movement capable of shredding smaller craft during close approach maneuvers. Even successful insertion remained statistically dangerous before enemy contact ever occurred. Several hours before deployment, Holt conducted final inspection procedures alongside the rest of Hadeon within Armory Section 7. The ritual itself followed standard Militarum Tempestus preparation doctrine. Weapons disassembled, power cells verified, armor integrity scanned manually despite automated systems already confirming operational status. The process was less about maintenance and more about mental conditioning. Routine, stabilized focus. Wren completed inspections first and spent most of the remaining preparation period seated atop an ammunition crate while consuming nutrient strips and speaking intermittently toward Corvin. "You ever been inside one before?" Corvin looked up from recalibrating his Medicus scanner. "A Hulk?" Wren nodded. Corvin answered honestly. "No." Wren smirked faintly. "Feels wrong inside them. Like the walls are thinking." Dravik interrupted, without looking up from his weapon assembly. "Walls don't kill people. Lack of discipline does." The conversation ended there. Approximately 40 minutes before launch, final mission confirmation arrived from Command Operations. No additional communications had been received from the missing Explorator team. No outbound movement had been detected near the target zone. No further surveillance drones survived insertion attempts. Strike Team Hadeon would proceed alone. Holt completed final synchronization with the Squad Vox network before sealing his helmet into place. Internal visor systems illuminated immediately with tactical overlays displaying squad vitals, ammunition counts, environmental warnings, and movement telemetry. Atmospheric pressure equalized across the hangar bay as the Valkyrie engines initiated startup sequence. The low vibration passed through the deck plating beneath their boots. Dravik turned toward the squad one final time before embarkation. His voice remained calm. "We confirm the Explorators, recover the data, maintain formation discipline, no unnecessary engagements." He paused briefly. "If something feels wrong, trust it." No further speech followed. The 4 Scions boarded the Valkyrie in silence, while deck crews secured the final restraint harnesses around equipment racks and ammunition containers. Overhead, warning lumens shifted from white to red as launch clearance propagated across the bay. Beyond the forward assault ramp viewport, Moros Fall continued drifting through the void. Immense, silent, waiting. The Valkyrie departed the Bastion Resolve at 0417 shipboard cycle time. Initial transit toward Moros Fall proceeded without incident. The assault carrier maintained reduced engine output to minimize thermal detection, while navigating through drifting debris fields surrounding the outer structure of the Hulk. Inside the troop compartment, the atmosphere remained dim, except for intermittent red lumens cycling along the ceiling panels. No one spoke during the first 20 minutes of flight. The sound of the engines filled most of the compartment, alongside the occasional metallic vibration caused by nearby debris impacts against the Valkyrie's armored hull. Holt remained seated nearest the portside restraint harness, monitoring the tactical display projected across his visor feed. The map updated continuously through external Auspex synchronization, though substantial portions of the Hulk still appeared incomplete due to interference. The closer they approached Moros Fall, the more unstable the readings became. Structural density overwhelmed long-range scans. Massive sections of fused ship plating blocked sensor penetration almost entirely. Internal layouts shifted every few minutes as automated calculations attempted to compensate for gravitational distortions generated deep inside the Hulk core. Flight Lieutenant Saran Veyr transmitted periodic updates from the cockpit. Crossing debris threshold. Minor radiation spike starboard side. Adjusting approach vector. Each transmission sounded increasingly compressed beneath mounting static interference. Corvin checked his restraints for the third time within 10 minutes, while Wren remained motionless beside the ammunition rack, helmet sealed, volley gun resting upright against his shoulder plate. Dravik stood throughout most of the flight, rather than sitting. One hand remained anchored against an overhead support rail, while the other reviewed operational telemetry through his wrist-mounted tactical slate. Holt watched him briefly before returning attention toward the external viewport. Moros Fall now occupied nearly the entire field of vision. At close range, the scale of the Hulk became significantly more disturbing than distant observation had suggested. The structure did not resemble a unified object. It resembled layers of civilizations crushed together over centuries of collision and warp exposure. Ancient Imperial hull markings remained partially visible beneath newer structural damage. Cathedral spires protruded sideways through fractured carrier decks. Sections of station architecture emerged from beneath overlapping warship plating like exposed bones. Several regions still emitted faint illumination from surviving power systems buried somewhere within the mass. Others remained entirely black. The designated insertion point became visible shortly afterward. Hangar aperture. Sigma 9 appeared as a jagged opening carved through the side of a collapsed transport vessel, partially embedded near the outer layers of Sanctity of Pallas. Debris surrounded the breach in dense, rotating clusters. Damaged hull sections drifted nearby alongside frozen corpses and fractured machinery, slowly spinning through vacuum. Holt identified at least 3 dead servitors among the debris. One still carried fragments of Mechanicus survey equipment attached to its torso assembly. Approach instability increasing, Veyr transmitted from the cockpit. The Valkyrie shuddered violently several seconds later as magnetic interference rippled across the hull. Warning symbols flashed briefly across Holt's visor display before stabilizing again. Compensating. The carrier angled downward toward the breach. Inside the compartment, restraint harnesses creaked under sudden directional changes, while loose equipment rattled against deck plating. Holt felt the familiar, tightening sensation in his chest that accompanied boarding insertions. Not fear, exactly. Anticipation sharpened by uncertainty. Boarding operations always compressed decision-making into smaller margins. Inside a Hulk, those margins became microscopic. The external view darkened as the Valkyrie crossed into the shadow of the breach entrance. Floodlights mounted along the carrier's nose illuminated twisted interior plating and fractured maintenance gantries extending inward beyond visual range. The transport vessel's original architecture had collapsed long ago. Entire sections hung upside down relative to neighboring structures. Flickers of failing emergency lumens pulsed faintly through distant corridors deeper inside. The cockpit vox activated again. 10 seconds. Dravik disengaged his restraint anchor. Hadeon, Final check. One by one, the squad confirmed readiness. Holt ready. Wren ready. Corvin ready. Dravik nodded once. Stay tight. The assault ramp began lowering before the Valkyrie fully stabilized. Cold air rushed inward immediately, carrying the sharp metallic scent of oxidized steel and burned coolant. Atmospheric pressure readings appeared across Holt's visor. Thin but survivable. Oxygen levels unstable. Trace toxins present within acceptable filtration limits. The interior of Sigma 9 extended outward like the carcass of a dead industrial district. Cargo containers floated partially unsecured near the ceiling. Broken loader servitors hung motionless from overhead rail systems. Sparks cascaded intermittently from exposed conduit bundles running across shattered walls. No movement, no sound beyond the engines. The Valkyrie touched down hard against the fractured deck plating. Deploy, deploy, deploy. Hadeon moved immediately. Dravik exited, first followed by Holt, Corvin, and Wren. Magnetic boot systems activated the moment they crossed onto the deck surface, stabilizing movement against inconsistent gravity fluctuations inside the vessel. Holt swept the immediate perimeter with his hotshot lace gun raised. Nothing. The interior chamber measured approximately 60 meters across, though collapsed structural debris reduced clear movement paths considerably. Large sections of the ceiling had ruptured upward into neighboring ship layers, where tangled pipes and support beams protruded through the darkness. The Valkyrie remained grounded only 30 seconds. Extraction beacon frequency confirmed, Veyr transmitted. If the hull shifts again, we may need alternate retrieval coordinates. Understood, Dravik replied. The ramp closed immediately afterward. Within moments, the carrier lifted away from the deck and vanished back through the breach opening toward open void. Then the silence returned. The absence of engine noise changed the environment instantly. Holt could now hear distant sounds carrying through the structure itself. Metal movement. Pressure groaning inside stressed bulkheads. Faint impacts somewhere beyond visible range. The hulk never remained fully still. Motion trackers initialized across the squad network as Dravik advanced toward the primary corridor leading deeper into the transport vessel. Holt moved ahead of formation automatically, maintaining approximately 10 meters forward distance while scanning for structural hazards and hostile movement. The corridor beyond Sigma 9 sloped downward at an uneven angle caused by the vessel's partial collapse into neighboring hull sections. Environmental conditions deteriorated almost immediately. Moisture covered large portions of the walls despite the near-vacuum conditions outside the hulk. Condensation dripped from overhead pipes in slow, irregular patterns. Some liquid carried traces of machine oil. Some appeared darker. Wren spoke quietly over the squad vox. Feels warmer than it should? He was correct. Internal temperature readings exceeded expected levels by nearly 9 degrees. Somewhere beneath the surrounding structure, functioning reactors still generated residual heat, possibly multiple reactors. Corvin paused briefly beside a damaged wall section where old Imperial markings remained partially visible beneath corrosion layers. Transport registry dates back at least 2,000 years. Keep moving, Dravik answered. The squad continued deeper. Approximately 400 meters from the insertion zone, the architecture changed abruptly as they crossed into a fused connection point linking the transport vessel with adjacent sections of Sanctity of Pallas. Here, the corridors widened considerably. The original cruiser interior still retained traces of former grandeur, despite catastrophic damage. Massive Gothic support columns extended upward through darkness beyond the range of helmet lumens. Religious iconography lined portions of the walls beneath centuries of corrosion. Destroyed statues floated partially detached near the ceiling, where gravity shifted inconsistently between sectors. The silence here felt different, denser, as if sound itself struggled to travel properly through the surrounding structure. Holt activated his Auspex scanner again. Interference immediately spiked. Readings flickered across the display with no stable confirmation patterns. Motion indicators appeared momentarily before vanishing again. Scanner distortion increasing, Holt reported quietly. Dravik answered from behind. Range? Inconsistent. Wren adjusted his grip on the volley gun. Hate that word. Further inside the cruiser section, evidence of the missing Mechanicus team finally appeared. The first discovery was a damaged servo skull resting near a collapsed archway approximately 1 kilometer from the insertion point. Its optics remained dark, though portions of its anti-grav systems still emitted weak pulses beneath cracked brass plating. Corvin crouched beside it, while connecting a retrieval cable into the skull's damaged memory port. Minimal power. Can you pull anything? Trying. Several seconds passed. Then Corvin's visor feed that transmitted fragmented visual recordings across the squad network. Dark corridors, Mechanicus personnel moving through debris. Auspex readings, static. Then sudden distortion before the recording terminated entirely. No visible attacker appeared. No explanation followed. Corvin disconnected the cable slowly. Last timestamp, approximately 41 hours ago. Holt scanned the surrounding corridor again. Still nothing. But the feeling returned stronger now. The sensation that the structure around them was occupied. Not visually confirmed. Not rationally measurable. Just present. Dravik resumed movement toward the command spire access route. Stay focused. The squad advanced deeper into Moros Fall, while the surrounding darkness closed steadily around them. Somewhere ahead, inside the massive, dead structure, the missing Explorators waited. The interior structure of Sanctity of Pallas became increasingly unstable. The deeper strike team Hadeon advanced toward the command spire. By the third operational hour, standard navigation discipline had deteriorated into constant route correction. Entire corridors terminated without warning, where sections of the cruiser had fused against unrelated vessel hulls during centuries of warp displacement. Some passageways narrowed so severely that Wren was forced to remove the external ammunition feed assembly from his volley gun in order to pass through collapsed sections. Other areas opened unexpectedly into immense cathedral-sized chambers extending vertically through multiple ship layers. Holt maintained forward reconnaissance position while continuously updating movement markers across the squad tactical network. The Auspex scanner remained unreliable due to dense metallic interference, but it still provided partial environmental mapping within immediate proximity, enough to prevent the squad from walking directly into structural dead zones. Not enough to guarantee safety. The environmental conditions shifted constantly between sectors. Some compartments retained atmosphere and weak gravity stabilization. Others required magnetic boot engagement due to complete gravitational collapse. Temperature fluctuations ranged from freezing conditions near exposed hull breaches to oppressive heat surrounding active reactor conduits buried deeper within the hulk. Every transition forced adjustment. Every adjustment slowed movement. The route toward the command spire eventually guided the squad into a vast logistics sector located beneath the upper cathedral decks of Sanctity of Pallas. Holt identified the area through surviving wall inscriptions and faded cargo registry markings partially preserved beneath corrosion layers. The chamber stretched nearly 600 meters across. Cargo elevators larger than hab blocks stood frozen between levels, while massive loading cranes hung motionless from overhead rail assemblies, disappearing into darkness far above the squad's lumen range. Countless containers floated partially unsecured through low-gravity sections of the chamber. Some had ruptured open decades earlier, spilling skeletal remains, rusted equipment, and decayed ration stock across the surrounding deck plating. The smell inside the chamber lingered even through filtration systems. Stagnant machine oil, dust, rot. Corvin scanned several of the remains, while Dravik evaluated possible traversal routes through the logistics sector. No recent dead, Corvin reported. How old? Several centuries at minimum. Wren glanced upward toward the suspended cranes. This place feels like one bad vibration from collapsing. Dravik studied the tactical slate briefly before answering. Then we avoid causing vibrations. The chamber presented both advantages and liabilities from a tactical standpoint. Visibility improved considerably compared to the confined corridors behind them. Long firing lanes extended across multiple levels, allowing Holt and Wren greater engagement range if hostile contact occurred. Elevated maintenance walkways surrounding the upper walls also provided potential overwatch positions capable of controlling movement through the entire chamber. But the same openness created exposure. If enemies occupied the surrounding decks, Hadeon could be attacked from multiple elevations simultaneously, with minimal cover between positions. Holt advanced ahead toward one of the central cargo ramps, while scanning the upper catwalks through his thermal optics. Most sectors remained cold and inactive. Several heat signatures appeared intermittently before dissolving into static distortion caused by unstable environmental interference. Again, the scanner refused certainty. The hulk seemed to absorb reliable information. Dravik selected a route through the eastern maintenance platforms, where elevated walkways connected directly toward the upper spire transit corridors. The position offered superior defensibility while reducing exposure to the chamber floor. Movement across the platforms required caution. Many sections had partially collapsed beneath centuries of corrosion. Loose plating shifted under armored boots, while exposed power conduits sparked intermittently through the darkness below. Several times, Holt noticed entire support beams vibrating faintly despite no visible source of movement. Moros Fall never remained fully inactive. The structure constantly settled against itself. As the squad progressed higher through the logistics sector, the environment began showing clearer evidence of recent Mechanicus activity. Portable lumen beacons remained attached along portions of the walkway railings. Survey markers, painted in red Mechanicus script, indicated previous route mapping. Several inactive servo skulls floated near the ceiling, where anti-grav systems had failed. The Explorators had definitely reached this area before communications ceased. Corvin paused beside a damaged survey station mounted against the wall. Power cells depleted. Can you recover logs? Dravik asked. Negative. Storage core melted internally. Holt continued scanning forward. Approximately 80 meters ahead, the maintenance walkway connected into a wide transit bridge overlooking the lower cargo chamber. The bridge itself represented one of the strongest tactical positions encountered since insertion. Thick armored railings provided partial cover, while the elevated angle allowed direct observation across multiple access routes below. If hostile engagement occurred inside the logistics chamber, controlling the bridge would allow Hadeon to dominate movement through the surrounding sectors. Dravik recognized it immediately. Holt, forward overwatch. Holt moved into position near the bridge midpoint, while Wren secured the rear angle with the volley gun mounted against the railing assembly. Corvin conducted a brief systems check on squad ammunition and environmental reserves, while Dravik reviewed the projected route toward the command spire. For several minutes, the squad remained stationary, listening. The silence inside the logistics chamber felt unnatural, even by Hulk standards. No machinery operated. No atmospheric systems cycled. No distant structural movement echoed through the decks. Just stillness. Then Holt noticed the sound. Very faint. Metal scraping somewhere below. He immediately raised one hand. The squad froze. Everyone listened. The noise repeated several seconds later. Slow, irregular, like heavy material dragging across deck plating somewhere deep within the lower cargo levels. Wren shifted the volley gun downward, toward the darkness beneath the bridge. You seeing anything? Holt adjusted thermal optics again. Negative. The chamber remained visually empty, but the sound continued intermittently, not approaching directly, moving laterally through unseen lower sections beneath the stacked cargo rows. Dravik made the decision quickly. No engagement, maintain movement. Holt did not argue. Whatever produced the sound possessed enough mass to echo through several deck levels despite the chamber's scale. Without visual confirmation, initiating pursuit inside the lower cargo field would expose the squad unnecessarily. Still, the sound followed them for the next 14 minutes as they crossed the maintenance bridge toward the eastern transit corridors. Never closer, never fully disappearing. The squad eventually exited the logistics sector through a massive pressure bulkhead that had become jammed partially open after structural collapse. Beyond it, the environment changed again. The corridors leading toward the command spire displayed considerably higher preservation than previous sectors. Emergency lumens still functioned intermittently overhead. Decorative bronze wall panels remained partially intact. Sections of marble flooring emerged beneath layers of dust and corrosion. This region had once housed command personnel and senior officers aboard Sanctity of Pallas before the vessel's destruction. The architecture reflected status rather than utility. Wide ceremonial hallways connected into observation galleries overlooking lower decks. Defensive choke points had been integrated directly into the corridor designs through reinforced firing alcoves and retractable blast partition systems now frozen permanently in half-deployed positions. From a tactical perspective, the spire approach offered numerous advantages for defenders. Narrow access routes limited enemy movement. Elevated firing positions controlled most intersections. Heavy walls reduced flanking opportunities. If hostile entities occupied the command levels ahead, they could fortify the area extremely effectively. Holt identified at least 6 separate ambush positions while advancing through the corridors. Dravik clearly noticed them as well. Spacing tighter, the Tempestor ordered quietly. The squad formation compressed immediately. Holt reduced forward distance to approximately 6 meters, while Wren maintained rear coverage directly behind Corvin. Every intersection received full visual clearance before movement resumed. The atmosphere also grew noticeably warmer. Condensation covered portions of the walls near active conduit lines. Faint vibrations pulsed through the deck beneath their boots at regular intervals, suggesting operational machinery, somewhere deeper within the spire structure. Power still flowed here. Not fully, but enough. The discovery increased the likelihood that portions of the command systems remained functional. It also increased the possibility that something else might be using them. Roughly 4 hours into the operation, Hadeon reached a partially intact observation cathedral, connected directly into the lower spire access shaft. The chamber represented the most strategically valuable location encountered so far. Tall armored windows overlooked massive sections of the surrounding hulk interior, while elevated balconies controlled all visible approach routes into the cathedral itself. Defensive barricades, constructed from damaged furniture and collapsed wall sections, indicated temporary occupation by the missing Mechanicus team at some point during their expedition. Several portable generator units remained near the central altar platform. Dead. Spent ammunition casings littered portions of the floor. Holt stopped immediately beside the nearest casing. Hotshot energy scoring marked the surrounding walls. The marks were recent. Very recent. Wren noticed them next. Contact happened here. Corvin scanned the barricade positions. No bodies. Dravik stepped toward the central platform slowly while examining the surrounding firing angles. The defensive arrangement told a clear story. The Explorators had fortified the cathedral deliberately. They had expected attack. More importantly, they had fired upon something. Holt moved toward the shattered observation windows overlooking the darkness beyond the cathedral exterior. The glass itself had long since ruptured outward into open void, leaving only armored blast shutters partially sealed against the vacuum beyond. He adjusted his optics carefully toward the surrounding structures outside. At first, he saw only drifting debris and distant hull plating. Then movement, very brief. A shape crossing between fractured ship sections several hundred meters away. Too fast for clear identification. Too large to be debris. Holt immediately raised his weapon. Movement outside. The squad repositioned instantly. Confirm visual, Dravik ordered. Holt continued tracking the area. Nothing remained visible now. Only darkness beyond the broken cathedral windows. But he knew what he saw. Something alive was moving through Moros Fall alongside them. The first confirmed hostile contact occurred approximately 19 minutes after Strike Team Hadeon entered the observation cathedral beneath the command spire. Until that moment, the operation had remained trapped within uncertainty. Evidence of combat existed. Signs of movement persisted throughout the surrounding sectors. The missing Mechanicus personnel had clearly fortified positions before disappearing. But no direct visual confirmation of hostile entities had yet been established. That changed when Corvin discovered the blood. The medici specialist had moved toward the eastern barricade line near the cathedral's lower access corridor, while examining damaged equipment left behind by the Explorator team. Several inactive servo turrets remained mounted against overturned supply crates, their ammunition reserves fully depleted. Melted barrel housings indicated sustained firing activity before system failure. Corvin initially believed the dark residue coating the barricade plating belonged to machine oil. Then his scanner identified biological matter. Human blood, he reported quietly over Squad Vox. Partially degraded. Holt immediately redirected toward the barricade position, while Dravik approached from the central platform. The blood pattern spread across the floor in long directional streaks, extending toward the lower corridor, leading deeper into the spire. Not random. Dragged. Wren crouched near one of the damaged barricades while examining the scoring marks across the metal surface. These aren't loss impacts. Holt focused his optics downward. The damage became immediately apparent. Deep parallel gouges cut directly through reinforced plating sections, nearly 2 centimeters thick. The marks resembled massive claw strikes rather than ballistic or energy weapon impacts. Portions of the barricade had not simply been broken apart. They had been torn open. Silence settled over the cathedral again as the squad processed the implications. Then the sound returned. Metal movement, closer this time, not distant scraping somewhere beneath the structure, directly below them. The lower corridor beyond the eastern barricade descended into darkness through a partially collapsed transit passage leading toward the command spire elevator shafts. Holt moved toward the corridor entrance slowly, weapon raised, thermal optics active. Nothing visible initially. Only darkness and drifting vapor illuminated faintly beneath the squad's helmet lumens. Then the motion tracker activated. A single contact appeared briefly at the edge of Holt's Auspex display. Fast. Closing distance rapidly. Holt, contact front. The warning came from Dravik simultaneously as Holt saw movement emerge from the corridor darkness. The creature crossed the lumen beams in less than a second. Pale, large, low to the ground. Then it vanished behind the collapsed support structures bordering the cathedral entrance. Wren opened fire immediately. The hotshot volley gun erupted across the chamber with deafening force. Streams of blue energy impacts shredded the surrounding barricades and corridor walls, while incandescent fragments sprayed across the cathedral floor. The hostile moved again. Fast enough that Holt barely tracked it visually. The creature launched itself upward against the corridor wall using all 4 limbs, before disappearing across the ceiling structure above the entrance. Corvin reacted first. Ceiling. Holt turned upward just as the enemy dropped from the darkness directly toward Wren's position. The impact sounded like industrial machinery colliding. Wren was thrown backward into the barricade line, while the creature crashed atop him in a mass of pale armored flesh and claws. The volley gun discharged wildly across the cathedral ceiling as Wren struggled beneath the attacker. Now fully visible within the lumen glare, the hostile finally revealed itself clearly. Genestealer. Holt recognized it immediately, despite limited prior combat exposure. The creature measured roughly 2.5 meters from head to tail, with a heavily muscled frame protected beneath pale violet chitin plating. 4 primary limbs extended from its torso, each ending in long, curved talons, capable of puncturing reinforced armor. A secondary pair of smaller, grasping limbs protruded beneath its upper thorax near the rib structure. Its head appeared elongated and skeletal, with no visible eyes beneath the smooth, armored crest covering most of the skull. The mouth consisted of layered, fanged mandibles, designed less for feeding and more for dismemberment. Every movement displayed horrifying efficiency. No wasted motion, no hesitation, pure predatory violence. The Genestealer drove one claw through Wren's shoulder armor before Holt fired. The hot-shot laser gun struck the creature twice across the torso at near point-blank range. Superheated energy burned through sections of chitin plating, releasing thick vaporized fluid into the air. The Genestealer barely reacted. It turned toward Holt instantly with impossible speed. Dravik intercepted before the creature could lunge. The Tempestor's plasma pistol discharged once directly into the Genestealer's upper body. The impact detonated across its chest cavity in a burst of blue-white energy, throwing the creature sideways into the cathedral wall hard enough to crack the surrounding stone. Still it moved. The Genestealer regained footing almost immediately, despite catastrophic burns covering nearly half its torso. It shrieked once through layered mandibles, before launching itself back toward the squad. This time, Wren met it head-on. Ignoring the blood pouring from his shoulder wound, Wren seized the creature mid-leap and activated the magnetic stabilizers built into his armor harness. Both bodies slammed into the cathedral floor together, while Wren forced the barrel of the volley gun directly beneath the Genestealer's rib structure. Then he fired continuously, the chamber filled with blinding blue impacts. Chitin exploded outward across the floor. Fragments of bone and flesh struck nearby walls. The Genestealer convulsed violently before collapsing motionless atop Wren's position. Silence returned almost immediately afterward. Only the sound of Wren breathing heavily through damaged Vox filters broke the stillness. Holt maintained his weapon trained on the corpse, while Corvin moved toward Wren with the Medicae kit already active. No secondary contacts, Holt reported after scanning the corridor again. Dravik did not lower his plasma pistol. There will be. The statement carried certainty rather than speculation. Corvin began sealing the puncture wound across Wren's shoulder plate while examining the damage. One claw penetrated upper armor segments, but missed the lung. Wren pushed himself upright slowly beneath the dead creature's weight. Told you walls think. Nobody answered. Holt approached the corpse cautiously, while continuing visual confirmation. At close range, the Genestealer appeared even worse than battlefield records described. Its musculature seemed unnaturally dense beneath the chitin plating, built entirely for close quarters assault. Several older scars covered portions of the armor shell, indicating previous combat survival. This was not an immature organism. It had hunted before. Dravik finally crouched beside the corpse, while examining the damaged claws embedded partially into the floor plating. Pure strain. Corvin looked up immediately. You're certain? Dravik nodded once. Too large for hybrids. That confirmation altered the tactical situation entirely. Pure strain Genestealers represented one of the deadliest close combat organisms commonly encountered aboard space hulks. Fast enough to overwhelm human reaction time, strong enough to tear open carapace armor, intelligent enough to coordinate ambush tactics within confined structures, and they almost never operated alone. Holt scanned the surrounding cathedral again. The realization settled heavily across the squad network, without anyone needing to say it aloud. If one Genestealer occupied the command spire approaches, more almost certainly infested the surrounding sectors. Possibly many more. Corvin completed temporary stabilization procedures on Wren's shoulder, while Holt and Dravik inspected the lower corridor where the creature first appeared. The passage descended sharply toward deeper spire levels through a series of fractured elevator chambers and maintenance access shafts. Blood trails from the missing Mechanicus personnel continued downward into the darkness. Additional claw marks covered portions of the walls. Some appeared fresh, others older. Wren approached behind them, his armor still leaking traces of blood beneath emergency sealant foam. "So, the Explorators found them first," Dravik answered without turning. "No, the Explorators were found." The distinction mattered. Genestealers rarely relied on random movement. They stalked, observed, isolated prey before attacking at moments of maximum vulnerability. The damaged barricades inside the cathedral now made tactical sense. The Mechanicus team had likely retreated upward toward defensible positions after initial contact somewhere deeper within the spire, and failed. Holt's motion tracker activated again. 3 brief signals, then gone. The contacts appeared above them this time, somewhere beyond the cathedral ceiling structures. Moving, watching. He immediately transmitted the update across Squad Vox. Dravik responded calmly. "They know we're here now." Wren reloaded the volley gun with a fresh power feed. "Good." But Holt noticed the change in everyone's posture afterward. The operation no longer felt like retrieval. It felt like survival inside enemy territory. Following first contact inside the observation cathedral, Strike Team Hadeon halted forward movement for approximately 11 minutes while conducting immediate casualty assessment and ammunition redistribution. The pause was necessary. The encounter with the Genestealer had lasted less than 20 seconds, yet the damage inflicted during that brief engagement exceeded anything the squad had sustained during the previous 4 operational hours combined. Wren's shoulder injury remained the most immediate concern. The Genestealer's primary talon had penetrated the upper right section of his carapace armor during the initial impact, slicing through reinforced plating and partially severing muscle tissue beneath the clavicle. Corvin's emergency treatment prevented catastrophic blood loss, but the injury significantly reduced mobility across Wren's dominant firing arm. More concerning was the armor damage itself. The puncture had compromised several stabilization systems connected to Wren's volley gun harness. Warning icons continued flashing intermittently across his suit diagnostics as the damaged servos struggled to maintain synchronization with the weapon's recoil dampening systems. Corvin completed the final sealant application before speaking quietly over the squad channel. "He can still fight." Wren looked toward him. That sounded optimistic. Corvin ignored the remark. "But recoil compensation is degraded. Sustained volleys will strain the shoulder further." Wren lifted the weapon experimentally, despite visible resistance in the movement. "Then I fire as shorter bursts." Dravik observed the exchange silently before redirecting attention toward Holt. "Status." Holt checked the tactical slate mounted along his forearm. "Ammunition at 68% combat reserves. 4 fragmentation grenades remaining. 1 melter charge unused. Power. Stable for now." Corvin transmitted his own update next. "Medical reserves reduced by approximately 40% after treatment. 2 stim injectors left. 1 radiation suppressor remaining." The numbers were already becoming uncomfortable. The squad had not yet reached the command spire objective itself, Yet their reserve projections now reflected extended combat conditions rather than retrieval operations. Worse, Genestealer engagements rarely remained isolated. Every known Imperial combat record involving space Hulk infestations emphasized the same principle repeatedly. Where one Genestealer appeared, more followed. Holt continued monitoring the upper cathedral structures while the assessment proceeded. Motion contacts flickered intermittently beyond stable tracking range, never remaining visible long enough for accurate counting. Sometimes one signal appeared, sometimes several. Then nothing again. The Genestealers were circling them, testing movement patterns, learning firing responses. The realization unsettled Holt more than direct assault would have. Genestealers hunted with patience. The cathedral itself no longer represented a defensible long-term position either. The shattered observation windows exposed portions of the chamber directly to vacuum through partially failed blast shutters. Temperature levels continued dropping steadily, while structural stress vibrations increased beneath the floor plating. Somewhere beyond the surrounding walls, Moros Fall continued shifting against itself. Eventually, the chamber would collapse entirely, or become isolated by structural movement. Dravik clearly reached the same conclusion. "We continue." No one objected. The squad reorganized formation immediately afterward. Ren shifted from rear support position into central escort placement due to reduced shoulder mobility. Holt resumed forward reconnaissance, while Corvin remained directly behind Dravik to preserve Medici access if further casualties occurred. Before departure, Holt approached the dead Genestealer once more for closer examination. The corpse still twitched intermittently, despite catastrophic trauma across the thoracic cavity. Thick, dark blood spread across the cathedral floor beneath it, while residual thermal energy continued venting from plasma burns inflicted by Dravik's pistol shot. At close range, additional details became visible beneath the damaged chitin. Scarring along the forelimbs, fragments of older last burns, sections of healed ballistic damage. This creature had survived multiple engagements before encountering Hadeon, possibly aboard the Hulk for years. Holt also noticed something else. The Genestealer's claws carried traces of dried blood beneath the talon joints. Human blood. Old. Not from Ren. He stood slowly before transmitting the observation privately toward Dravik. The Tempestor answered immediately. Means the Explorators never stood a chance. Then the squad moved deeper into the command spire. The corridors descending beneath the observation cathedral narrowed considerably as Sanctity of Pallas transitioned from ceremonial command architecture into restricted operations sectors. Heavy blast doors lined portions of the walls, many fused permanently shut through age or structural deformation. Others remained partially open, just wide enough for armored personnel to pass through single file. Environmental conditions worsened steadily. Humidity increased. Condensation coated nearly every visible surface. The air itself felt warmer now, despite the failing atmosphere systems, carrying a faint organic smell beneath the usual mixture of coolant and oxidized metal. Not decay exactly, something denser. Holt noticed it first through filtration analysis. Then everyone smelled it. Ren spoke quietly over the vox. "Smells alive down here." Nobody answered. Approximately 40 minutes beyond the cathedral engagement, Hadeon reached the lower transit junction connecting directly toward the command spire core. The junction had once functioned as a central personnel transfer hub, linking command decks, data archives, and upper navigation chambers. Now it resembled a battlefield abandoned during evacuation. Bodies covered the floor. Most belonged to the missing Mechanicus Explorator team. Several corpses remained partially intact near defensive positions, hastily constructed from survey equipment and overturned storage units. Others had been torn apart so violently that identifying individual remains became difficult beneath the blood and scattered machinery. Corvin immediately began visual confirmation procedures, while Holt and Dravik secured the surrounding perimeter. Magos Erind Veyr was identified first. The Explorator leader's body rested near the center of the junction, slumped against a damaged cogitator terminal. Most of the lower torso had been removed entirely beneath massive claw trauma. One remaining mechanical arm still clutched a data slate against the chest cavity, as if attempting to protect it during death. Additional Mechanicus personnel lay nearby. Some appeared killed while retreating. Others died defending the barricade lines surrounding the junction entrances. Evidence of heavy combat filled the chamber. Hot shot burns covered walls and ceilings. Spent ammunition packs littered the floor. 2 combat servitors remained collapsed near the northern corridor, with their weapon systems fully depleted. More importantly, the Explorators had succeeded partially. A reinforced data container sat near Veyl's corpse, connected directly into the damaged cogitator systems by heavy transmission cables. Dravik approached immediately. Holt, secure the perimeter. Corvin, confirm retrieval integrity. Corvin moved toward the container while activating diagnostic scanners. The reinforced unit bore Adeptus Mechanicus encryption seals alongside Omega-9 priority markings, previously referenced during the briefing aboard Bastion Resolve. Whatever information the Explorators recovered remained inside, and they died protecting it. Holt maintained overwatch across the surrounding corridors, while Corvin worked through the data logs. The junction offered relatively strong defensive geometry compared to previous sectors. 3 narrow access routes controlled entry into the chamber, while elevated maintenance alcoves provided overlapping firing coverage across all approaches. Strategically, it represented the best fortified position encountered since insertion, which explained why the Explorators chose to make their final stand there. Ren slowly approached the nearest body pile while inspecting the damage patterns across the dead Mechanicus personnel. No gunfire wounds. Holt glanced toward him briefly. Ren continued. They got into melee range. That fact carried terrible implications. Even armed Explorator teams supported by combat servitors failed to prevent Genestealer breakthrough inside the junction defenses. The claw damage across the barricades confirmed sustained close quarters fighting throughout the chamber. Corvin finally spoke from beside the data container. Core integrity confirmed. Files preserved. Dravik nodded once. Mission objective secured. The words should have provided relief. Instead, Holt felt the opposite. Because now the Genestealers no longer needed to protect the command spire. Now they only needed to kill the retrieval team before extraction. The motion tracker activated again. This time the contacts remained stable. Multiple signals, moving through the surrounding corridors simultaneously. Fast. Holt immediately transmitted the update. Movement all sectors. Not 2 contacts, not 3. Many. The northern corridor erupted with motion as multiple Genestealers flooded toward the junction through walls, ceilings, and maintenance shafts simultaneously. Some moved upright. Others crawled across overhead structures, using claws to propel themselves through the confined space with horrifying speed. Dravik shouted across the Vox. Concentrated fire. Don't let them close. The chamber became chaos immediately afterward. Hotshot lass fire illuminated the junction continuously, while Genestealers launched themselves against barricades from every direction. Holt maintained controlled precision fire from the elevated position, targeting movement vectors rather than individual bodies whenever creatures crossed open sight lines. Even then, they moved too quickly. One Genestealer reached the northern barricade and tore directly through reinforced plating before Dravik severed its arm with the power sword. Another climbed along the cathedral support columns, attempting to flank Holt's alcove before Corvin dropped it with 3 precise hot-shot impacts through the skull ridge. The creatures attacked intelligently. Some assaulted defensive positions directly, while others forced the squad to split firing attention across multiple elevations. Several Genestealers deliberately absorbed suppressive fire, while faster organisms maneuvered through side angles, attempting close-range breakthrough. They had hunted armed prey before. Wren's volley gun became the squad's primary survival anchor during the first wave. The weapon's sustained output controlled the southern approach almost single-handedly, reducing entire corridor sections into burning wreckage beneath concentrated hotshot energy. But the strain on his damaged shoulder became visible quickly. Holt noticed Wren repositioning the weapon more slowly after each firing cycle. His armor servos were beginning to fail. The second wave hit approximately 6 minutes later, this time through the overhead maintenance ducts. The junction ceiling exploded downward as 3 Genestealers burst through weakened plating directly above Corvin's position. Holt fired instantly from the alcove, killing one creature mid-descent before it reached the floor. The remaining 2 landed inside the defensive perimeter. Everything collapsed into close combat immediately afterward. Corvin barely avoided the first Genestealer's claws by throwing himself behind the supply crates near the data core. The creature smashed directly through the barricade instead, shredding metal plating apart with enough force to send debris across the chamber. Dravik intercepted the second creature before it reached Corvin. The power sword carved through the Genestealer's rib structure in a burst of white energy, while the Tempestor drove the blade upward through its thoracic cavity. The creature shrieked violently and slashed downward simultaneously, tearing open sections of Dravik's left arm armor before collapsing. The surviving Genestealer turned toward the data core. Holt understood its intention immediately. Destroy the objective. He fired continuously from the alcove while descending toward the lower platform at the same time. 2 impacts struck the creature's torso, but failed to stop it completely. The Genestealer lunged across the barricade toward the reinforced container, just as Corvin drew his combat blade and met it directly. The Medicae specialist had no chance in open combat. Everyone knew it, but Corvin still attacked without hesitation. The blade struck beneath the creature's jawline, while the Genestealer's claws drove through Corvin's chest armor simultaneously. The impact threw both bodies against the data container hard enough to crack portions of the casing. Then Wren fired. the volley gun discharge crossed barely 2 meters from Corvin's position. The Genestealer disintegrated instantly beneath the concentrated burst. Fragments of chitin and blood covered the surrounding barricades, while Corvin collapsed against the floor beside the data core, clutching the ruined front section of his armor. Holt reached him first. The wound was catastrophic. One claw had penetrated directly through the chest cavity beneath the sternum. Blood filled the interior of Corvin's visor, while warning symbols flooded across his armor diagnostics. Corvin looked toward Holt briefly. "Core secure?" Holt answered immediately. "Yes." Corvin nodded once, weakly, before looking toward Dravik. The Tempestor already understood. No Medicaid treatment aboard the junction could repair damage that severe. Corvin's breathing slowed rapidly as blood loss overwhelmed the emergency sealant systems, struggling to contain the wound. Then the movement stopped entirely. Silence lasted perhaps 2 seconds before another impact struck the outer barricades. The Genestealers were still attacking. Holt rose immediately beside Corvin's body and reclaimed the remaining ammunition reserves from the fallen trooper's position, while Wren continued suppressive fire toward the northern corridor. Dravik checked the tactical display quickly. "How long?" Holt knew the question referred to extraction. He checked the damaged Vox receiver again. "Approximately 71 minutes. Wren laughed again quietly, through strained breathing. Comforting. The next assault came harder. Genestealers attacked through every visible approach simultaneously now. Holt abandoned the elevated alcove entirely to reinforce the primary barricade line alongside Dravik, while Wren anchored the southern corridor alone. The junction filled continuously with weapons fire, smoke, and screaming impacts against metal walls. Several Genestealers died before reaching the defenses. Others crossed the barricades anyway. One creature managed to breach the eastern approach and slammed directly into Holt before he could fire. The impact drove both bodies across the floor, while the Genestealer clawed repeatedly against his chest armor, searching for structural weaknesses. At close range, the creature smelled of blood and decaying organic matter beneath the metallic odor of its chitin plating. Holt jammed the lasgun beneath its throat and fired upward through the skull. The Genestealer collapsed immediately atop him. Before Holt could recover fully, another impact shook the junction from the southern corridor. Wren's position. Holt turned just in time to see 2 Genestealers break through the burning wreckage surrounding the southern barricade. Wren killed the first creature almost instantly, but the second reached him before the volley gun could fully reposition. The Genestealer struck from the side. Claws tore through Wren's already damaged shoulder assembly, while the impact drove both bodies against the corridor wall, hard enough to fracture surrounding plating. Wren grabbed the creature anyway. Even wounded, the Scion outweighed it slightly beneath full armor mass. He locked one arm around the Genestealer's upper torso, while forcing the barrel of the volley gun directly beneath its chest cavity. Then he looked toward Holt briefly across the junction. "Hold the line." Wren triggered the weapon at full discharge. The explosion tore apart both the Genestealer and most of the southern barricade position simultaneously. Fire and debris filled the corridor entrance, while fragments of armor scattered across the junction floor. When the smoke cleared, nothing recognizable remained of Wren or the creature. The southern approach now stood partially open. Holt stared at the burning corridor for less than a second before another Genestealer shriek echoed through the northern passage. Dravik's voice cut through the chaos immediately. Objective comes first. And Holt understood exactly what the Tempestor meant. They were no longer defending the junction to survive. They were defending it long enough to ensure the data core left Moros Fall. The order to abandon the transit junction came 32 minutes after Trooper Corvin's death. By then, the defensive position had deteriorated beyond sustainability. The southern barricade no longer existed following Wren's final volley discharge. Large portions of the eastern firing alcove had collapsed beneath repeated Genestealer impacts. Ammunition reserves had fallen to critical levels across both surviving squad members. Worst of all, the enemy assault patterns were changing. The Genestealers were no longer charging recklessly into overlapping firing lanes. They had begun waiting, watching from the darkness beyond lumen range, while isolated creatures tested weak points along the barricades. Several times, Holt spotted pale movement just beyond visible range, only for the contacts to vanish before he could fire. The creatures understood the defenders were exhausted now. They no longer needed immediate breakthrough, only eventual failure. The extraction signal finally stabilized through the damaged Vox receiver during a temporary lull in the attacks. Strike Team Hadeon, this is Bastion Resolve actual. Magnetic disruption partially cleared. Extraction corridor available approximately 2.6 kilometers southeast from current position. Valkyrie cannot reach original insertion zone. Static swallowed portions of the transmission before it resumed. Nearest viable retrieval point designated cargo lift Theta 4. Estimated arrival window 36 minutes. Dravik checked the tactical slate immediately. The route toward Theta 4 crossed multiple unstable maintenance sectors below the command spire before reconnecting with the logistics chambers near the outer hulk layers. Under normal conditions, traversal would require approximately 40 minutes. Under pursuit conditions, less certainty existed. Holt already understood the situation before Dravik spoke. We move now. No ceremony followed, no acknowledgement of the dead. The data core remained secured inside its reinforced transport container, now magnetically locked against Holt's lower backplate. The additional weight reduced movement speed slightly, but remained manageable. Wren and Corvin stayed behind inside the junction, among shattered barricades and burned Genestealer corpses. There was no possibility of retrieval. Dravik initiated final purge procedures before departure. Demolition charges salvaged from Wren's unused melter reserves were armed against the central cogitator systems surrounding the junction. If the position falls, Dravik explained calmly, the archive does not. The logic remained unquestionable. Neither Scion spoke again afterward. They departed the junction through the eastern maintenance corridors moments before the charges detonated behind them. The explosion thundered through the surrounding decks with enough force to shake loose dust and debris from overhead support structures. Metal screamed somewhere deep inside the spire. Then silence followed briefly. Only briefly. Because several seconds later, the shrieks began. The Genestealers had discovered the retreat. Holt and Dravik moved quickly through the collapsing maintenance sectors, while the sound of pursuit echoed through the surrounding corridors. The route toward cargo lift Theta 4 descended sharply through service tunnels running beneath the command levels of Sanctity of Pallas. conditions deteriorated almost immediately. Unlike the preserved cathedral sectors above, these lower maintenance regions had suffered catastrophic structural fusion during the Hulk's formation. Entire corridors twisted sideways into neighboring ship hulls at impossible angles. Gravity shifted unpredictably every few hundred meters, forcing both Scions to repeatedly engage and disengage magnetic stabilization systems during movement. In several sections, they were forced to traverse walls instead of floors. Steam vented continuously from ruptured coolant lines overhead, while exposed reactor conduits filled portions of the corridors with oppressive heat. The temperature inside Holt's armor climbed steadily despite internal cooling systems operating near maximum capacity. The environment itself felt hostile now, alive. Every sound carried through the surrounding structure with distorted intensity. Metal impacts echoed unpredictably through ventilation shafts, while distant vibrations pulsed beneath the deck plating like enormous machinery operating somewhere far below the visible sectors. And beneath it all came the pursuit. Claws against metal. Fast. Constant. Never far away. Holt checked ammunition reserves while moving. 23 standard hotshot cells remaining. 1 fragmentation grenade. Combat knife. Nothing else. Dravik retained slightly more ammunition due to limited plasma pistol use, but the Tempestor's left arm injury from the junction assault had worsened significantly during movement. Blood loss indicators flashed intermittently across his armor diagnostics, despite emergency sealants slowing the bleeding. The power sword also displayed energy instability warnings following repeated close combat engagements. Neither condition was sustainable. Approximately 14 minutes into the retreat, the pair reached a fractured engineering chamber connected directly into the lower maintenance arteries, leading toward Theta 4. The room had once functioned as a reactor coolant regulation station, before structural collapse destroyed most of the machinery. Now it resembled the interior of a wrecked industrial furnace. Massive pipes, larger than troop carriers, crossed overhead through dense clouds of steam, while pools of boiling coolant collected beneath broken deck plating. Dim red emergency lumens pulsed intermittently through the chamber, creating alternating periods of visibility and shadow. Dravik halted near the entrance briefly. Movement. Holt already saw it. 3 Genestealers clung motionless against the overhead pipe structures nearly 20 meters ahead. Their pale chitin reflected faintly beneath the emergency lighting, while elongated claws anchored them silently against the metal. Waiting, watching the corridor approach. The creatures had anticipated the route. Dravik fired first. The plasma pistol shot struck one Genestealer directly through the torso, hurling the creature backward into the coolant reservoir below, where boiling liquid immediately engulfed the body. The remaining 2 attacked instantly. Holt fired controlled bursts while retreating laterally across the chamber. One Genestealer crossed the pipe structures overhead fast enough to avoid most incoming fire before launching downward directly toward Dravik. The Tempestor met it with the power sword. The impact drove both bodies against the engineering platform railing hard enough to buckle the metal supports beneath them. The Genestealer slashed repeatedly at Dravik's damaged arm, while the Tempestor forced the energized blade upward through its rib structure. The creature shrieked violently and collapsed. The third Genestealer reached Holt moments later. This one moved differently. Smaller, faster. The creature crossed nearly 15 meters before Holt managed a clear firing solution. 2 hot-shot impacts burned across its shoulder plating, but failed to stop the charge completely. Then it hit him. The impact knocked Holt backward into one of the coolant regulation consoles, while Genestealer claws ripped across his chest armor, searching for weak points beneath the plating seams. At close range, Holt could hear the creature breathing. Fast, wet, animalistic beneath the layered clicking sounds emitted from its mandibles. He drove the combat knife upward beneath its lower jaw repeatedly, until the creature recoiled momentarily. That hesitation saved him. Dravik fired the plasma pistol directly over Holt's shoulder. The Genestealer's head disappeared in a burst of superheated vapor. Its body collapsed instantly atop Holt's armor. Silence returned to the engineering chamber again, except for steam venting through broken pipes overhead. Holt shoved the corpse aside slowly before forcing himself upright. His chest plate had survived. Barely. Deep claw grooves marked the armor directly above the sternum, where the Genestealer nearly penetrated through the plating. Dravik extended one hand briefly. "You moving?" Holt nodded once. The Tempestor helped pull him upright before checking the tactical slate again. 16 minutes to extraction window. The pursuit sounds had already resumed beyond the engineering corridors behind them. More Genestealers were coming. The creatures never attacked randomly now. They were herding the survivors deliberately through predictable routes toward isolated kill zones deeper inside the hulk. Holt realized the truth while securing the data core harness again. The Genestealers understood extraction routes, maybe from instinct, maybe from hunting experience accumulated across decades aboard Moros Fall. Either way, they knew the Scions were trying to escape, and they intended to intercept them before reaching Theta 4. The route ahead narrowed into a descending maintenance artery, barely wide enough for 2 armored personnel moving side by side. Steam and darkness swallowed most of the passage beyond visible range, while unstable gravity fluctuations caused loose debris to drift slowly through the air around them. Dravik reloaded the plasma pistol one final time. "Holt." The trooper looked toward him. "If one of us reaches the Valkyrie, the core leaves the hulk." Holt understood immediately. Not optimism. Contingency. The Tempestor was already calculating survival probabilities realistically now. Neither man spoke again after that. They simply continued descending deeper through Moros Fall, while the sounds of Genestealer pursuit closed steadily behind them. Cargo lift Theta 4 became visible through the steam approximately 11 minutes before the extraction window expired. The structure occupied a massive vertical transit shaft connecting the lower maintenance arteries of Sanctity of Pallas toward the outer logistics sectors near the hulk surface. Before the vessel's destruction, the lift system had transported munitions, reactor components, and heavy machinery between command levels and cargo bays deeper below. Now most of the shaft existed in ruin. The primary lift platform itself hung motionless nearly 70 meters beneath the upper loading deck, suspended crookedly against damaged rail assemblies. Entire sections of the surrounding structure had collapsed inward over centuries of neglect. Emergency lumens flickered weakly along the walls, while exposed power conduits sparked intermittently through drifting steam. Most importantly, the shaft connected directly toward open exterior hull breaches above. Extraction was possible here. Barely. Holt and Dravik reached the upper loading platform exhausted, bloodied, and operating on rapidly diminishing ammunition reserves. Both sets of armor displayed severe structural damage following continuous combat during the retreat from the transit junction. Holt's chest plating remained deeply fractured from the engineering chamber encounter. Several internal servo systems no longer responded consistently. Warning runes filled portions of his visor display, where armor diagnostics had degraded beyond automatic correction thresholds. Dravik's condition appeared worse. The Tempestor's left arm hung partially immobile beside his body, where Genestealer claws had shredded through muscle and armor alike during the junction fighting. Blood continued leaking slowly beneath the damaged plates despite repeated sealant application. His power sword had finally failed entirely several minutes earlier, after the energy field collapsed during movement through the maintenance arteries. Only the plasma pistol remained operational, and only 2 shots remained inside its final charge pack. The extraction Vox signal stabilized briefly as they entered the loading platform. Strike Team Hadeon. This is Valkyrie 7 approaching Theta 4 vector. Magnetic turbulence severe. You have approximately 6 minutes before debris convergence closes the corridor. Dravik answered immediately. Understood. The transmission distorted again beneath interference, then vanished entirely. Holt moved toward the outer platform edge, overlooking the enormous shaft below, while activating motion tracking systems one final time. The Auspex immediately flooded with contacts. Dozens. Moving upward through the maintenance sectors beneath the loading deck. Fast. Too fast. They're all coming, Holt reported quietly. Dravik checked the surrounding platform geometry rapidly. Theta 4 offered terrible defensive conditions compared to the transit junction. The open loading deck lacked meaningful barricades, while the collapsed lift structures created multiple vertical approach routes from below. The only advantage came from visibility. For the first time since entering Moros Fall, the squad could see the enemy advance clearly. Pale movement surged upward through the darkness beneath the shaft, like living shadows climbing across the walls. Genestealers emerged from maintenance ducts, broken ladders, support rails, and fractured cargo lifts simultaneously. Some moved on walls. Others leaped across hanging debris with terrifying agility. Holt stopped counting after the first 20 contacts. The nest had committed fully now, not because of the Scions themselves, because of the data core. Dravik positioned himself beside the main access corridor leading onto the loading deck, while Holt secured overwatch near the outer extraction edge. Valkyrie lands, the Tempestor said calmly. You run. Holt looked toward him immediately. We both run. Dravik did not answer. The first Genestealer reached the loading platform less than 90 seconds later. Holt killed it instantly, with a controlled hotshot burst through the skull as the creature emerged from the lower maintenance ladder beneath the platform edge. The corpse fell backward into the shaft darkness below. Then more appeared. Weapons fire echoed continuously across Theta 4 as the surviving Scions fought to hold the loading deck long enough for extraction arrival. Holt maintained disciplined firing patterns despite exhaustion, targeting climbing Genestealers before they fully breached the platform itself. Several creatures died before reaching the upper levels. Several more replaced them immediately. Dravik became the anchor, holding the main corridor approach alone. The plasma pistol discharged with devastating precision each time Genestealers attempted concentrated breakthrough along the central route. Superheated explosions tore apart chitin and metal alike inside the confined passageway. But every shot consumed irreplaceable ammunition. The final charge pack depleted rapidly. Holt's ammunition reserves fell critically low as well. 17 cells, then 12, then 8. The Genestealers kept coming. The creatures no longer behaved like isolated hunters now. Their attacks resembled coordinated assault waves. Some deliberately drew fire across exposed angles, while others maneuvered through the shaft walls, attempting to flank the platform edges simultaneously. One nearly succeeded. A Genestealer burst upward from beneath Holt's position, using exposed cargo rails as climbing supports. The creature crossed the final distance so quickly, Holt barely turned in time before it slammed into him. Both bodies crashed against the outer loading deck railing, overlooking the shaft below. The Genestealer's claws ripped across Holt's helmet, cracking portions of the visor display, while warning symbols flooded his vision. He fired the lasgun point blank into the creature's torso repeatedly, until the weapon power pack finally discharged empty. Still, the Genestealer fought. Its claws punched through Holt's shoulder plating, before he managed to force the empty weapon frame beneath its jawline and shove the creature backward over the railing edge. The Genestealer fell into darkness. But Holt almost followed. Only magnetic boot stabilization prevented him from tumbling into the shaft alongside it. He recovered just as another scream echoed across the platform. Dravik. 3 Genestealers had breached the central corridor simultaneously. The Tempestor killed one immediately, with the final plasma pistol shot. The second died moments later, when Dravik drove the deactivated power sword directly through its throat, using brute force alone. The third reached him fully. Holt tried to move toward the corridor. Too late. The Genestealer slammed into Dravik hard enough to throw both bodies against the shattered corridor wall. Claws punched through the Tempestor's chest armor repeatedly, while Dravik locked one arm around the creature's neck, preventing it from reaching the throat seal beneath his helmet. Then the Valkyrie arrived. Engine noise thundered across the shaft as Flight Lieutenant Veyr forced the assault carrier through collapsing debris fields above Theta 4. Searchlights illuminated the loading platform, while heavy bolter fire erupted from the side mounts, shredding several climbing Genestealers apart instantly. The extraction ramp lowered before the craft fully stabilized. "Holt, move now!" Veyr's voice cut through the Vox distortion clearly. Holt turned toward Dravik. The Tempestor already knew. Blood covered most of his armor now, beneath the Genestealer struggling against his grip. "Core leaves the hulk," Dravik ordered. The Genestealer tore deeper into his chest cavity. Still, Dravik held it there, holding the corridor shut, holding the remaining swarm behind it. Holt hesitated only 1 second. Then he ran. Heavy bolter impacts detonated across the loading platform as the Valkyrie crew fired continuously into the advancing Genestealers. Holt crossed the final distance toward the assault ramp, while creatures surged across the shaft walls behind him. He looked back once before boarding. Dravik remained visible inside the corridor entrance, still locked against the Genestealer, while additional pale shapes flooded toward the position through the darkness behind him. Then the corridor vanished beneath the swarm. The Valkyrie lifted immediately afterward. The assault carrier barely escaped Theta 4 before debris convergence collapsed sections of the surrounding shaft entirely. Massive structural fragments crashed together beneath the retreating craft, while Genestealers continued leaping across the collapsing platforms, attempting impossible pursuit. One creature actually reached the rear ramp before side-mounted heavy bolters tore it apart mid-climb. Then Moros Fall disappeared behind them. The Hulk drifted silently through the void once more as the Valkyrie accelerated toward Bastion Resolve under full engine output. Inside the troop compartment, Holt finally removed his damaged helmet. Blood ran from multiple cuts across his face, where the visor fractured during the final assault. His hands trembled from exhaustion and adrenaline collapse, while Medici crews immediately began emergency treatment procedures around the data core harness still locked against his armor. He barely remembered the return flight. Only fragments remained afterward. Engine vibration, voices, the constant metallic taste of blood inside his mouth. The official debriefing occurred 17 hours later aboard Bastion Resolve after emergency surgery stabilized his injuries. Holt sat alone inside Tactical Chamber 4, wearing medical wraps across the shoulder and side of his head, while command officers and Mechanicus representatives reviewed mission recordings through the central hololithic projector. Magos Leth Varan attended personally. The data core sat secured inside a containment field beside him. Archive integrity confirmed, Varan stated through the mechanical distortion of his Vox systems. Recovery success acknowledged. Holt stared at him for several seconds. 2 Scions dead, 1 Tempestor lost, 9 Explorators killed, and the Mechanicus called it recovery success. Varan continued regardless. The recovered files contain navigational records, pre-heresy reactor schematics, and partial standard template construct fragments. The operation prevented permanent loss of significant knowledge assets. Holt finally answered quietly. Good. Nobody spoke for several moments afterward. The debriefing officer eventually requested final operational observations regarding Moros Fall and the hostile infestation inside Sanctity of Pallas. Holt considered the question carefully before responding. The Genestealers controlled the command sectors long before the Explorators arrived. The nest wasn't wandering. He paused briefly. It was established. The chamber remained silent, because everyone present understood what that meant. Moros Fall was not merely infested. It belonged to them now. The debrief concluded shortly afterward. As Holt exited Tactical Chamber 4, he passed an observation port overlooking open void beyond the frigate hull. Moros Fall still drifted in the distance far beyond weapons range. Immense, silent, dark.